Hey everyone, we're live, yeah? Hi, it's Natalie and
What up?
Fess. We are here again. Welcome back. And today we are going to show you the SQ-64. Truly, Fess is going to be the main specialist today. But I am here to join him and ask any questions. He is awesome with this thing. And Fess, you want to just play a little bit for us first, or say some stuff?
Yeah. I think I'll start by just playing a little beat that I got going with this thing, and then we're going to talk about it. So let's just get into it. Yeah, I can kind of get lost in that forever. Things kind of got a little randomized, but that's what's cool about this. Let me get back to my normal view here. So what's up, everybody? We're looking over here. Let's see who's all checking in and really curious about this thing. We got
Shelly.
Oh God, my girl's in here. Shout out to my lady. She's interested in the SQ-64, and I know lots of other people are too. I know that people have been waiting on this thing for a while, and I just got word that it's shipping. So if you got this on pre-order, just be patient. You are going to get your SQ-64 very, 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 very soon. And quite frankly, you will be hard-pressed to find a desktop sequencer that could offer all of the things that this thing can offer, with integration into modular and obviously standalone analog and digital synths. You also got integration with Korg devices as well, with the sync out and the sync input. So you could sync up Vocus, you could sync up the mini log like we have over here. And you could even do USB MIDI, which is also what I'm doing today. So you could power up iOS devices and DAWs. Well, not power them up, but sequence them. So I am doing that. I'm doing all of those things actually today. I am using this, primarily speaking, to control my modular system here by ALM Busy Circuits, the System Coupe. And I'm taking advantage of pretty much majority of these outputs here, with the exception of these two tracks B and C. But let's just go through all the connections really quick. What you have here is you have two MIDI outs via the new TRS B standard. You do need those adapters for that to go from that TRS MIDI to the 5-pin MIDI. You have two outputs and you got one input. Then you have the sync in and out, like I mentioned earlier. And then we have 4 tracks on this sequencer. And within those 4 tracks, we can get up to 64 steps. And each one of those 4 tracks are broken down by these outputs right here. So on track A, we have a modulation output, a pitch output, and a gate output. Same thing for B and C. And on track D is special on this thing because it's really made for drum sequencing or just doing like single note hits, meaning that you could send out gates either with all of these gate outputs, or if you wanted to use this on MIDI, you could send out just single note triggers, which are gates even in MIDI too. So you could do whatever you really want with it, but it's made for drum tracks. In fact, if you go over to track D and you hold the letter D down, you get this little 16 pads right here. And what these 16 pads represent is your actual drum parts. So this whole track can break down into 16 individual parts. So case in point, let's go to gate. It only you can only access the drum track notes by going to gate because you can't sequence pitch on track D. So that's just first little tidbit right here. But let's go back to track D, and if we hold that, we see we're on the first part, which actually correlates to the first gate right here. So 1 through 8 would correlate with these 1 through 8 gate outputs. But if I was using MIDI in this case, I could have a full 16 parts right here to like sequence. So let's actually mute everything else.
So we have some questions too.
Oh, tight. What do we got before I go even further in depth?
Those are just gates, or do we have CV volt?
Yeah, so let's review. Let's go back again. So tracks A, B, and C, you have full pitch and gate outputs. You have 1 volt per octave on the pitch. But the cool thing about this is this thing is kind of, this is like the successor to the SQ-1, but it's like the SQ-1 really on steroids, in my opinion, with the screen, because you could do all of those same voltages. Like you could do the hertz per octave volt standard if you wanted to like sequence an MS-20. Let's actually go to the global settings here and show you what I mean. What am I doing? I wanted to show you guys the actual voltage options, but I think I'm in a wrong setting here. Oh wait, yeah, duh. We have to go to the individual track. So if you go to the individual track, so let's say track A, for instance, and you want to change that voltage that comes out of the pitch, you could do that by just changing the voltage range. And then you could also change the standard. So there you have 0.32 volts per octave. You have 1.2 volts per octave. Sorry if you can't see that. And you have your standard 1 volt per octave. And then you could do the same for the modulation. You could set your maximum voltage range on your modulation, which is important. If you're dealing with modular, you need to know what type of voltage range that you're dealing with. So that is for sure. And you could also even change the type of triggers that you're sending out on your gate. So I hope I answered that question. Yes, you do. You have 3 CV and gate outputs in addition to 8 gate outputs. So I hope I was able to answer that. So again,
someone else also asked about the size. They're noticing how, like, even I know when I don't know, let me turn this mic so you can hear me. But I know, like, when I showed Fess the SQ-64, I'm pretty sure you were like, oh, that's way smaller than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, like, pretty sweet, actually, right?
Like, let's just, like, give a little perspective shot here of, like, the Volca it's kind of like two vocas in terms of like the width, and it's about the same length as a voca. When I first saw pictures of this thing, I thought it would be a lot bigger, but it's really sleek. It's got a nice metal chassis build. This thing is solid. Like, you know, you got soft buttons here. It's thin. Like, you could just snug it right in a backpack or in like a laptop bag. And this thing, I really feel like Korg knocked it out the park with this, because it's made for, again, modular people, and it's also made for electronic music performers. You don't have to just stay in a studio with this thing. And I'm going to feature or show some of the live features that I think are really good for live performance in a little bit here. So let me just keep moving forward. So again, this is like an update. It's even like an update of like the modern, or it's like a modern update of like the old Korg SQ-10, which came out in '79. And again, you have a polyphonic sequencer here with 3 tracks, and then you got that 1 track just made for drums. We went over the connections, and once again, each one of these tracks, you can go up to 64 steps. That's actually what the 64 and SQ-64 means. And it's cool because if you're on a track, like I am right now, I only have 32 steps on this track A. That's actually going to my MCO voice that I got running. But if I wanted to, I could have a full 64 steps. And if I hit record, I'll have all access to those 64 steps right in front of me. So that's really cool. But let's actually talk about sequencing a little bit. So let me go through the sequence that I got here. Let me let's mute the drums. Oh yeah, let's go back to 32 steps. So again, I'm coming out with CV and gate out of this pitch output and out of this gate output, and I'm sending pitch over here, and I'm actually multing my pitch so I could send my pitch out and track it with the oscillator and with the filter on this ALM system. And then I'm also taking advantage of this modulation output, but I'm using that for a different reason. I'm actually using that to modulate some levels on my drums, but I'll show you that in a little bit. What I really enjoy about this sequencer is the fact that once you get into a sequence, well, let me show you how we do that first. There's 2 ways you could do it. You could obviously sequence by using an external controller, like a Midi keyboard or a Midi pad controller. You would go Midi into here, but I like using this thing as is, just like on its own to sequence. And it's cool because we got scales in here, and I'm not a great keyboard player at all, really. And it's funny that I'm on this channel and I'm not really a keyboardist, but either way it goes, this thing was made for people like myself who I need to rely on scale modes to kind of get some grooves going, and I'm not shy about that. So this particular groove, I'm in minor pentatonic, and when you want to record notes, like I said, you could either go in per step and like decide on what note you want per step, or you can go and hold pitch and then hit track A. And now you have a little keyboard trigger mode.
I want to like interject with that because that's such a huge feature, I think, where people often are like, hey, can I play that synthesizer? Do I need to know how to play the piano to play a synthesizer? And like the fact that I don't know how well you all can see on the screen, but it just says right here, scale, and you turn the knob and it gives you all of these different options. It has modes like Phrygian, like maybe you don't even know what that means, but this would allow you to just hear it and play around by pressing the buttons and hearing all the scale degrees that are in that scale. So it could be like a creative way of even learning what those scales sound like, actually putting sound to it without having to figure out the hand coordination of playing a keyboard. I think it's sweet.
Yeah. And also adding to that, I really enjoy the fact that this trigger mode here. You could do it in 2 ways. You could let's go back to your global settings here. you can go over to keyboard mode, and you see I have it set on ISO. What ISO is short for is Isomorphic Layout. Isomorphic layouts are perfect for grid style controllers, and it basically puts all the notes in sort of like a guitar fretboard type situation where every note above itself is a fourth.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I love isomorphic layout. That's why I like to use launch pads and like, the instrument and stuff, because it allowed me to be more expressive by just learning a few patterns on the grids, as opposed to, with your normal keyboard layout. You
would have to do the math.
Yeah,
with
you
the
still have to
normal
remember
keyboard
all the
figure out,
intervals and all that.
The space between the notes, whereas this is actually mapping it out, the harmonic structure for you.
Right. But the cool thing about it is we get both options. So let's go back over to pitch. Let's go back to my trigger mode. Now I'm in the keyboard mode. Let's go to equal. Yeah, so I could do either or. I personally like the isomorphic layout, but it's up to you. And
Can we hear that too?
Yeah. Let's go back to that. And the whole reason why I like that is what I just said, how each note is like a fourth above each other. So I could just go up in the scale like that, instead of having to like go across like with my keys and remember all my intervals and stuff. So the isomorphic layout is also really familiar for like guitar and bass players too, because it's like reading like a fretboard the way that it was laid out to me. I also don't play guitar, but I have more than a few friends who do, and they all say the same thing about that layout. So I could, if I wanted to, add to that. Now, the reason why you heard that choke is because I'm doing monophonic sequencing. This modular system is only a monophonic voice, so I can't do, polyphonic overlapping type chord stuff. But anyways, let's actually get out of that, and let's just clear this whole track. How about that?
People are asking about the editor.
Oh,
It's a
God.
common question we get, by the way.
I just got word from the main people at Korg that the editor is on the way. So if you already have one of these, first of all, if you already have one of these, you're lucky, because not too many people have this yet. So that's why they're shipping now. And with that is news about the editor that's coming. And you'll be able to basically edit all the MIDI parameters for this thing and sort of make it into your own controller. There's lots I'm hearing you could do with that. But I haven't had personal experience with that yet, so I can't really tell you in detail, but all I know is that it's coming. Anyways, let's not actually delete my full track here. Let's go back and take out some steps I don't like. So if you're in gate mode, you could easily just turn off notes. Like that one, and this one, and maybe that one. And maybe that one. So say for instance you're like on this, and let's just get rid of some of this stuff too. Or whatever. I sort of messed up my sequence here, but you get the point. You could easily turn notes on and off. You could easily go back and just get random inspiration by just either switching the sequence mode to go in reverse, or bounce, where it goes in the forward and then it goes back in reverse, or stochastic mode, which is like stochastic mode is like it's some super modular stuff.
I love that word.
I do
Get
too.
that in your vocab.
Yeah, but it's like as the way it was described to me, it's basically a math algorithm where it like once it plays a note, it could play the note right to the left or right of it either once or twice. I don't know, something like that.
Like randomizing what gets triggered.
Yeah, but it's like a little bit of controlled randomization. Okay. And that's why I like in this SQ-64, they put that mode in as a sequencer mode, and they also put in random. So now I don't even have to really do stochastic. I could just do random,
Which is so good, like so great for sequencing, because I think that becomes a big issue with using sequencers is you don't want so much repetition, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It gets old and boring. So that's a nice feature.
That's really a nice feature. So let's actually bring back up my drums, right? This is going to not sound good at all. It sounds all right. But like if I wanted to just clear that track like I wanted to do earlier, my bass track I'm talking about, I could hold shift, and you can get to pretty much all these parameters by holding shift and then just hitting that button in its respective row. So over here I want to clear track A. Let's hit clear on track A. Now track A is clear, right? I want to do something new. Let's go back and play this in live. I'm back in my isomorphic layout. Let me go back to my minor pentatonic scale. I'm a pentatonic person. I know that much. I don't know much theory, but I know that I like pentatonic. So, yeah, if you listen to a lot of my music, you'll probably find that most of my stuff is in pentatonic. I'm really exposing myself out here, you guys. Anyways, let's play something in live, and let me show you the joy of the randomization that you could do with the sequencing. That's cool. Man, let's do 32 steps. All right, let's go back.
Fess, as you're doing that, can you just remind, if you're just tuning in, we have Fess here playing with the SQ-64 and a bunch of other amazingly cool looking gear. Can you tell us, so like, what you're getting your beat right now from the Volca drum? Mm-hmm. You're using the SQ-64 to sequence the Volca drum too, or
actually
just
no.
syncing tempo?
Actually, no. Let's rewind that a little bit.
I want to figure out this chain that you have going on.
For
what
sure.
Is connected to what?
For sure. So actually, these drums. Let's actually take that off. Let's go back to the drums now. These drums are actually generated by track D, and with track D, let's go over here. Here's my kick. And I know it's my kick because if I hold track D, I have sub number 1 selected. This will be sub number 2. This will be sub number 3. This will be sub number 4.
Okay. If you're a total newbie like me, are you like assigning from the Volca drum that sound?
Let me
like explain it a little bit more for me.
Yeah, for sure. Let me just mute this. How do we mute? I knew how to mute. Anyways,
you just stop it.
Yeah. Well, it would have been nice. There's a way that you could mute this. You could mute these subtracks too, but we'll go back to that. But anyway, so what I'm doing is on gate number 1. First of all, let me just back up here. This module right here is a sampler. I have the Squid sample out there for modular heads by ALM. That's also in this system coupe. If you want to know what I'm using, and this module has 8 gate inputs. I feel like this module was made for this sequencer because what do we have right here? We have 8 gate outputs. So these 8 gate outputs correlate to track D, which is sort of built for drums.
If you have no idea what a gate is, how would you describe a gate?
I would describe a gate as a trigger, and if you have no idea what a trigger is, a gate is literally just like an on and off function. It's like, and it's actually voltage. It's control voltage, but the best way to describe it is to think of a square wave. Most gates can actually be triggered with square waves because the square wave goes directly up, and then just over, and then just right back down. There's no slide, there's no slope in a square wave at all. It's a square. So a gate is the same way. You're sending either 0 volts or you're sending 5 volts in this case. And that's it. There's no variant in between. There's no sending it like, 2 volts or 3 volts. It's either that or that. And with that is made for drum triggering. In the Midi environment, it's made for drum triggering, but especially in a modular environment, it is made for drum triggering. And that's why I love this thing, because I got 8 of these here. The only other thing I think even can come close to this is like the Arturia Beat Step Pro, or their Key Step. But anyways, this is giving you that and more with these 2 MIDI outputs and these 3 other pitch and gate outputs. So the gates are sort of the same similar case when you're controlling modular voices. So you still need a gate to sort of trigger that envelope on that voice, right? So when you're playing a keyboard, you are actually creating gates by hitting the keys.
So this SQ-64, you're controlling when we're receiving the signal from your external instruments?
No, I am sending the signal to my external instruments.
Got it.
This is the brain.
That's what I meant to say. Yeah.
This is the brain. Like, this is the heart.
It's opening up to receive sound.
Yep. So in this case, I got like 6 drum samples loaded up into this Squid sample. Using royalty-free samples from my man Decap. Shout out Decap for sending me these samples. But anyways, let's go back to that drum track, because now I can actually show a cool performance feature that I love about this thing. We're jumping around here, but it's all good. What's cool about this and very unique about this sequencer is it has a fill option. And what this fill option does, it fills in notes in empty spaces where there aren't notes. And you could just turn this encoder.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's just a turn of the knob.
Yeah.
And it keeps going until you
keeps
turn it
going
back.
all the way from 0 to 100. 100 can get pretty crazy.
Nice. And what, do you know like what sound it's picking when you're doing the fill?
So
do you assign that? Or?
Because I have 6 drums on here, and I got 6 of my gate outputs patched up right here. Mm-hmm. When I hit fill, you see how I noted it's hitting on like 6. It's also hitting on 7 and 8. Mm-hmm. If I had other patch cables going to 7 and 8, I could go to the Squid sample, but I'm just not using channel 7 and 8. I'm only using 1 through 6. So even though I'm still missing out on 2 more samples that I could be triggering, the more that you increase the fill percentage, the more that it increases the chance that these gates will trigger.
Between 6 and 8?
Between all of the channels.
All of them. Okay.
Yeah. There's even a way that you could do fill on the entire track. Let me that gets a little crazy though. Let's try it. Let's use max. Let me turn this on. Yeah, like it gets a little nuts when you do it like that. But anyways, back to our drums. Yeah, so I don't know. I hope I was able to, like, at the very least, explain why this drum track D is just so cool. Like, I love it because obviously I still have the same randomization type sequencing features that I showed you on track A for my bass. I could do that on the drum track as well. And that's when things get really interesting. When you start randomizing your drums, let's try it. Let's just go to random. Things just get very off the grid and very weird very quickly, but you know, you might want that. You might want a slower tempo. And you just might be performing or something, and like you might want to create this crazy breakdown, and then you're on random mode. So now you could add fill to that crazy breakdown that you just made. And you could easily get out of random mode by just holding shift, hitting random on your track. Now you're out of it. Let's go back up to my original tempo. All right, so you asked me about the Voca too. And now, you know, I'm not using my main drums on the Voca. What I'm doing on the Voca is I'm actually just running sync out of this SQ-64 and going into the sync in on my Voca drum. And I'm just adding more percussion
for tempo.
on it. Yeah.
So the audio sync there is just syncing the tempo. So everything's aligned, but then you can use the Voca drum as another external drum sound beyond your sampler.
Yep, totally. Yeah, so let's bring that bass back up. So I got my modular bass voice. And I got my drums, my main drums coming off the Squid sample with track D. And then I got another layer of percussion that's just in sync coming from my vocal drum. But what about my iPad, you ask?
What about the iPad?
So.
What is this doing? A monopoly.
Yeah. This is the only
awesome vintage Korg synth that I used to love.
This is like the only monopoly that I can afford is the app. But the app is great. The app is great. All of the Korg apps are great. I would have used Korg Gadget, but I feel like that I just wanted to keep it simple. So I'm going to use one of my favorite apps by Korg. Next to the IMS-20 is the Korg Monopoly. And I have that being MIDI sequenced now with this SQ-64 on track C. Let's listen to that.
Wait.
Oh,
How are you syncing an iPad with the SQ-64?
yeah. So
Like what?
first and foremost, when you want to connect your iPad to anything MIDI-wise, you're going to need, I don't know if you guys can see that, but you're going to need this, they call it the iPad or iOS camera adapter, but it does more than that. It really just connects your devices, your iOS devices, to any class-compliant USB device. Luckily, our SQ-64 is actually a class-compliant USB device. So what does that mean? That means that we could send MIDI out of this USB cable right here.
Even the USB sends MIDI out.
Yep.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So I am sending out MIDI via USB.
Am I hype man?
No,
What?
no, it's
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
I don't ever use MIDI, so even
Technology
learning
is
that
insane now.
It's evolved since the last time I just looked at my 8-prong MIDI.
Yeah,
Cable,
you're like
whatever,
5-pin MIDI
5-pin
cable.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like what I'm used to seeing MIDI being synced with. But yeah, we're doing it with the audio cables here and now with the USB
Yeah, it's insane.
to an iPad.
It's insane. First of all, everything that's on the iPad is even more insane. But the fact that we can connect these worlds together now by just one cable and an adapter is really crazy. And then here's the X factor in all of this. I'm actually powering up my SQ-64 with this same cable that I'm sending out MIDI through.
iPad.
Yeah, because like with that adapter, you also have the option to send
Power.
a charger cable to it, and with that, it will power both devices. My iPad is powered now, and now my SQ-64 is powered now because it can run off of USB power. So that is just another really cool thing about this. I am a full fan of this device. But anyways, so I am sequencing just this very simple just like super simple. This like LFO lead that I just made. I kind of like just sort of made this patch like before I got here.
Sweet. And that sequence, then, like the pitches are assigned through the SQ-64.
Yep.
The monopoly is functioning as your sound source as far as just like the tone.
Yep.
But the pitches are coming from the SQ-64.
Correct.
I hope it's not like too like, duh, Natalie, but you know, if you know nothing about this,
No, this is
you
good.
want to like make sense of how everything's running. So I hope it's helpful for some other people that are like me.
No, like this should never be like a like duh type situation because this does so much. Like I kind of like lost track of like where we were even gonna go because I just well no that's the joy of it because we get to talking about certain features and that just illustrates how deep this thing is, you guys. Like I haven't even really talked about the modulation yet, but let's actually check in with the chat real
I
quick.
think someone asked about the modulation a little bit.
Yeah.
I think somebody asked about LFO.
Yeah.
I thought I saw that somewhere.
Yeah. So okay.
Oh, here. Yes, you can link an LFO via MIDI clock with the SQ-64?
Yes, of course. Yes. So when you're sending out MIDI clock, anything that you're receiving that MIDI clock from, you could sync to whatever parameter you need to sync it to if it's time based. So if you have an LFO that's in sync and you're running you want your LFO to stay in sync with the master clock. If you're sending master clock out of this MIDI, there you go. Your LFO is going to be in sync with whatever your master clock is set to. I don't have that going on. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Yeah, I do have that going on here.
Yeah,
I do have an LFO that's actually in sync here. I didn't really realize that. Let's check that out. Yeah,
right?
like that whole frequency thing.
It's in time.
Yep.
Whether or not you speed it up or slow it down, it's still going to sync up in time. There it is faster. I think you're just changing the triggers, but I think on the iPad, actually, if you change the LFO there, it stays in time, right?
Yeah. Well, oh yeah, right. Because I have my base division set
There
at
it is.
1/16.
Yeah.
But even still, that 1/16 is a divisor off of my main clock.
Right.
So yes, it definitely does
both
that.
will kind of align together.
Yep. So that's a good question. And yes, it will do that. Just literally picture this thing as like.
Oh, is our mic too loud? Is it blasting? Maybe we can pull away from it.
Oh, the mic's too loud. Sorry, guys.
Somebody said our mic's too loud. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I get excited about this because I get excited about MIDI sequencers in general because I have a lot of hardware. And I get really excited about MIDI sequencers that have modular connection integrated into it. I don't need to like rack this, even though I totally would, but I enjoyed the new wave that's coming of like hybrid desktop gear that can connect with pretty much everything. And I'm doing that. I'm running MIDI, like just traditional MIDI to sort of sync up the MIDI log. I'm running USB MIDI. I'm running sync out to my Voca. I'm running pitch and gates, and then I'm running multiple gates. This is just like all in one device. Really cool. But let's go back and slow it down a little bit and talk about this modulation because I really want to show you guys this because I also think it's a really cool feature about it. So let me go back to my drum track and let's get out of here. So, if we go over to mod, we're in the modulation screen. And with the modulation, you can set this track to be a source via CV, which is what I'm using here, to, change parameters on stuff. So if you, let's go to the global settings. Let's get out of here. And let's go to mod display. This is, sorry, I keep going past it, guys. Sorry about that. This is something that is really key, in my opinion. You could change what the pad LEDs display for your modulation, and it's important because if you're on values, the LEDs on the pads are only going to reflect the value that you set, right? That's okay, but it gets really cool when you keep it on gates. Let me show you why. Let's go back to my gates now. Okay, so again, that's my snare track. Let's go back to my kick. Actually, let's go to my hi-hat. That's my hi-hat, right? I know that because let's add some more hits. I'm running this whole sequence at 32 steps. You see it going across. Now I'm in gate mode, right? Let's go back to mod mode. You see how there's nothing that changed on this LED layout? That's because if I wanted to, I could start setting my modulation per gate. And it's important that this is displayed because let me go back and show you why. If I have this on values and go to mod, now I can't really, like I gotta kind of like follow the sequencer scroll here to kind of know what note I want to set modulation to. You got to kind of play a little bit of guessing game. You might be able to get away with that. I just think that it's really cool that they included the option to change the display for my modulation to just stay on the same gates that I just set. If I go back in the drum track now, I'm on channel 3. Channel 3 is my hi-hats. Here are my hi-hat notes. I'm still on modulation now. So now I can start setting the modulation per step and have those steps be the same steps that are my gates for my hi-hat, if that makes any sense.
What are you modulating?
So I'm not modulating anything right now. I'm about to.
Okay.
So let's do it. Let me show you where I even got my modulation going first. I have this patched into the assignable CV output or input, excuse me, on the squid sample. And what I want to do is actually control the level of my hi-hat. So if I go to level on the sample and just hit assign, now my CV that I could be getting from anywhere is going to be setting the level of my hi-hat. So that's cool because what I could do over here now is I don't even really have to set modulation per step. You can if you want to, but I want to be just random and crazy with it. So that's why I could turn up the variation amount. And that goes from 0 to 100. Let me turn my offset down. Let's just keep it around there. So if I turn this up, it won't do anything, right? That's because when you're in any one of these modes too, if you hold shift, you can get into extra modes. It's not doing anything because I also have to set a range that I want it to actually modulate. So let's just start turning up the range. Let's turn my offset back up. All right, still not doing much modulation like how I want to, and that's okay. Let's go to global and figure out why. So if I go to
Somebody asked,
your global settings,
is there a way to turn off the dimmed lights of the not active steps of the sequencer? I'm having difficulties.
There isn't actually, you guys, and this is also just something that it's not really translating well because we're sitting in a naturally lit room. But I actually have the brightness set at the highest that it will go. And there isn't a way, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Korg, but there isn't a way to adjust the pad brightness. I think that brightness only really...
Overall.
Oh, it's overall. Okay. Yeah, unfortunately there isn't. But let me go back to my modulation settings here. Okay. Well, whatever. There was a way that I wanted to show you guys about actually setting the voltage range, which is again important.
We should go back to 50 yachts too, but asked a question. I missed it. Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Let's see. Is this okay for people new to production?
Yeah and no. Yes, because it will like help you generate ideas, but it might not be all right if you only have like, one piece of hardware. This is definitely made to sort of sequence hardware, but it could also sequence DAWs and iPads too. So if you have an iPad, if you have an iPad and you plan on building on that by getting more hardware, don't be shy about that.
Maybe if you elaborate on what your current setup is, if you want a legit direct response to you,
yeah,
we can let you know. But yeah, you need some sort of sound input, right? So if you only have like one keyboard or something,
yeah,
that it's still functional. It's still going to be able to sequence that keyboard, which is cool. But I think what ideally is super awesome about this is syncing multiple instruments, right?
Right.
Because it's 64.
Right.
Right. You're getting 4 tracks here. That's ideal for actively using lots of gear.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry guys, I'm like trying to get to like the modulation settings. And for whatever reason, I just can't find them right now.
But with that, as a beginner, that doesn't mean you can't just sequence one piece of gear. So
yeah, for sure.
Like
what I'm saying is like, if you're a beginner and you only have like some software or an iOS device like an iPad or something, this could still help you sort of see where you want to go, because you could start generating ideas with that internally with your software or with your iPad, and then realize, hey, I do want to get a Voca, so I could start running this Voca in sync with this and also in sync with whatever my iPad is doing, which like you could totally do. Just like so.
Jonathan just asked a similar thing. Can I sync up my Minilog XD?
Yeah, so I'm not doing that now, but if I wanted to, I could run Midi out and either purely sequence all of my notes on here for my Minilog XD via Midi, or if I want to still be able to play my Minilog XD or actually take care of the sequencing of the notes on my Minilog XD, I could do that and stay in time by either using, again, a Midi cable and just setting the internal clock, changing that from internal to external, or we could use the sync out, which in that case you just need that eighth inch TRS cable, and you could go sync out of the SQ-64 and go sync into your Minilog XD or any other Korg device that is taking the sync in and sync out. And then if you wanted to too, you could use your Minilog XD as a master clock and do the reverse of what I just said, or the inverse of what I just said. Yeah, so where are we at on time? Oh God, we got like 9 minutes. God, I want to like jam with you and stuff. Like, I don't know.
Right now, let's do it.
Maybe that's what we should do. But I mean, man, there was like so much more stuff I wanted to get into with like the modulation or whatever. I'm sorry that I ran up on that time, but just know that with these mod tracks, let's just go through it real quick. You do have certain curves you could set. You can make it so your modulation goes up and down like a gate or like a square wave. In this case, you have no curve. You can make your modulation go linear, so it just ramps up, or you could have an exponential type curve to where it just goes like this and then straight up. And then you could also, you know what else? Before we even get to our jam, and maybe I'll do this with the jam. Let's just cover the loop mode real quick, and then we're going to do this little jam. But what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, like, what is your favorite feature about this?
My favorite feature about it is what I spent so much time on, and that's the randomization features. Because again, you don't have to just be stuck in a groove and just be like, well, what am I going to do with this? You could just spice things up a little bit. But
can you randomize each track separately?
I just did that.
Yep, you did. That's exactly what I was wondering. So, yeah.
And then when it gets all out of whack, you go over here and you hit resync.
Cool. And it sets everything back to...
Or you could just hit stop and hit play again. But look, I still have my random coming in on track A, so that's why it kind of sounds crazy. Right. So we can just turn that off.
Awesome.
So loop mode. Loop mode is also pretty crazy. What this mode can do is, let's go in phase. We could do cool loop roll stuff like this. You can get like Aphex Twin style ratchets and stuff. There's also a way you could do more ratchets and stuff on like notes as well, by playing with the arpeggiator mode, but I didn't really get time to cover that. But this thing is just so deep that there's just modes within modes. But the loop mode is really cool on drums because like I said, you could just really spice up your drum performance. Let's go to 2 times. And then there's like different settings for it.
Are you looping an individual step?
Yeah.
I see.
Exactly.
Okay. So yeah, generally I would think of looping as a phrase, and essentially that's what the sequencer is doing. So
yeah,
loop mode here is looping an individual step.
Yep. And this is something that is very familiar for to DJs like myself. Like lots of DJ software, they call this loop roll, or if you're using like a SP-404. This is like similar to the DJ loop effect on there, where you could sort of roll a track and have it come back in time. And what's cool about this is there's different modes about it. So when you're on select mode, you could actually select the step that you want to roll based off the rate that you got selected. Let's go down a little bit. That's like a half. That's 1 time. 2 times. And then as soon as you press that same step again, it will release that loop and go back to the sequence in phase, as they say, or in rhythm to me. You could change that. You could have it set to free, and let's do the same thing. You see how it kind of comes back like not in rhythm? Now everything's out of sync, right? I can go back over here and hit resync. It's kind of still out of sync, so I kind of got to hit stop and start it over again. That's why I like the in phase setting, because
I think also like just musically, if you do hit that start button, you can do it in time, right?
Oh yeah, you could do that in time as well.
So
but
it's a part
just
of the
like
performance.
Yeah, but some of that, the setting illustrates that they kind of did all that thinking for you, because that in phase mode, it doesn't throw your whole thing out of rhythm.
Got it.
Yeah, so that's cool. And then there's a way that you could go from just selecting a step.
You got a DJ question too.
Oh snap! What's the DJ question? What's the
Fess
DJ
is
question?
a DJ master. We got to stop to answer. Can you connect to DJ stuff? I got Denon SC-6000s.
Oh,
An 1850. So
he's got a
use it
Denon.
for
Yeah.
DJ stuff.
Hey Jonathan, does that have MIDI on it? If it has MIDI on it, you could definitely connect this to that. If that DJ controller that you has MIDI on it, even if it's USB MIDI, you could run MIDI clock from the SQ-64 to your DJ controller. There's some Pioneer stuff that you could do that with as well. Yeah, like that's all the rave right now too. Like I'm also a DJ, so I know all about hybrid electronic sets, as we call them, where we're bringing our hardware out to play either on top of or in sync with the music that we're playing, and do like live remixing and stuff on the spot. That stuff's getting really popular now, and I do a lot of that myself. Yeah.
I see Alvaro. I know you're like begging for us to answer. I thought we answered it already, but dimming the non-active lights, or like turning off the non-active lights.
Yeah, I personally don't know of a way that you could do that now, but that might be something that they could put in a firmware update. So maybe at some point in the future, we could do that.
Product support got you covered.
Oh,
Also.
tight. Awesome. Yeah, I love that Korg is like in here.
Yes,
They, like,
everyone's in here.
They have our backs when you guys have questions that might throw us off for a loop. Man, so again, this thing is so deep. I don't know where we're at on time.
I mean, we should start wrapping up maybe.
Yeah.
What are some things in a sentence that we could have still covered? And maybe we'll do a like follow-up stream.
For sure. I could have talked more about the modulation. I wanted to. That was just a lack of time management on my part. Sorry about that, guys. But just know that you have 3 modulation tracks in here. And you could also do modulation via MIDI CC. Of course, you can. Of course, this is capable of doing that. But more importantly, you have 3 modulation outputs.
Oh, pattern chaining too.
Yeah.
We didn't really cover that.
Yeah, that's another thing. Right, I didn't cover that.
That's okay. We're not
yeah.
gonna have time today, but just another thing to take.
That's
note
another
of.
thing that you could do. When you go over to pattern mode right here real quickly, these are all patterns. So these are patterns. You have 16 patterns per track. So let me switch drum patterns here. That's a different drum track with a different kick rhythm that I get. And that's another drum pattern.
I know that's a thing with Volcas for sure, where you can go through different patterns. And if you have a program saved or sequences saved in the Volca, you can have it chain and just play through them once and then go to the next saved pattern. So
exactly.
Is this a similar thing?
I'm on this pattern right here. I can go to action and copy this pattern and put this pattern over here. And when I have it over here, I could start mangling it up or just change it up all together and just keep adding on top of it.
And it can just play through them in sync without having to hit stop and start and selecting it?
That's actually what this mode is. You could play it in step, you could play it by the beat, you could play it by the bar, or you could play it by the end of the pattern. I like in step because I'm good with keeping my time. And then pattern chaining. To get the pattern chaining real quickly, hold shift. Remember I told you that holding shift is like you access a whole nother set of parameters here. Let's get over here. If you hold shift, now you're in pattern chain mode. What pattern chain mode is, you're setting this thing to automatically switch patterns based off of however you want it to be. So let's edit our chain. Let's do.
And we should play out.
Yeah, let's do this one and then this one. And it should be set. Now let's hit play.
See your screen, but it's all good.
Nice. So I just easily made a pattern chain right now.
So what exactly does that mean? It's like a pattern within the sequence.
Yeah, it's like it's fully switching up patterns, but it's kind of
See, my ear was just listening to the.
Well, it's kind of hard to hear. I think I mistakenly copied my first drum pattern, so now.
Can you do it to the melody?
Yeah.
The bass line.
Well, I don't have an actual melody set, but I could easily go back to pattern mode. Let's get out of here, and let's go over here and copy that. Hit yes and paste that. Hit yes. So now I'm over here. I could easily go.
Is there any DAW control?
Oh yeah. So again, everything.
Like Ableton? Like can you use this with Ableton?
Yeah, I could easily send out MIDI via USB to Ableton, and this will pop up in Ableton under your MIDI section, and you could
map or controller.
And you could set this to. You could even set this to just a hard control mode, and say for instance you wanted to just use this just to control Ableton's clips or something.
Nice.
You could do that. And with the editor, I'm sure it's going to be a lot easier to do that because you'll be able to just plug this up to the computer, get on the editor, set your whole custom control like how you want it to be, and probably save it. So I'm sure that's what the holdup is. They want to make sure that all that is good to go before they send it out. And shout out to Korg for not sending out stuff that's half done. I really appreciate that about you guys as a company, because you'll be surprised. but anyways, I was about to show you pattern chaining mode. I am in like this other pattern now.
There you go. That got switched up.
Yeah, but I did that on its own. So if we go back to chain mode here. There we go. So you see how my drums is changing on its own?
Yeah.
Now I'm in a pattern chain mode.
And we'll just
I don't have to set it anymore.
Nice.
Yeah. So you can keep building on that. I just did it with just 2 patterns. You could do that all the way up to 16 patterns. So with pattern chain mode is really, to me, a song mode. So with this device, you can create full songs with time signature changes. You could do polyrhythms. I didn't even get the polyrhythms at all, but you could have each one of these tracks have its own step length and play at its own step length and play at its own time signature, and essentially build polyrhythmic type material with that. I love doing that stuff as well. I wish I had more time to show that off too. But again, this thing is just like so deep, and I think we already went over our time. So I really appreciate.
Play out a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Let's just do it.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you came in late, this will be posted on our Facebook and YouTube channel, so you can go back and rewind. If you are like, cool, I got it, but I forgot, and you're getting an SQ-64, you can always look back at it again. Kind of the beauty of these. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.